Welcome to the BVTV Network, coming to you from the UK studios of BizVision. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. Now, this is episode 3 in the Aligning the Dots trilogy with author and business growth expert, Dr. Philippe Bouissou. Hello for the final time, Philippe.
Hello, Malcolm.
I enjoyed your last presentation in episode 2 about your alignment. It really, you brought it home very, very simply. But let's talk further about alignment. As a company grows, and you're suggesting a dramatic growth rate can be achieved, surely the challenge lies in maintaining the alignment across the business. How should a leader go about ensuring that your paradigm remains consistent in delivering results over a longer time?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Market dynamics, as we talked a little bit earlier, are critical because things are changing. There are really two types of misalignments possible. One is the company changes, makes decision, and suddenly they become more misaligned. And I'm going to give you probably the most, profound example of this, which is a company that was studied in 2003 by somebody out of Stanford University. She was 19 and she dropped out, and she studied this company called Theranos. And the idea was to go after the blood testing industry, which is a $75 billion industry here in the US. And so the idea was, if I can run dozens of blood tests of one single drop of blood, of the prick of my finger, then that's much better than sticking a needle in my vein. And that was the idea of Elizabeth Holmes when she studied Theranos. Well, the reality was quite different. In fact, the tests were inaccurate. It was fraudulent. It didn't work. And what happened is that the A4, she created a massive A4 misalignment. And again, A4 is the expected daylight versus what's delivered. I was expected that it would prick my finger and be able to run those blood tests successfully, and it didn't work. So obviously, my disappointment was very high. In fact, Elizabeth Holmes is on trial right now. In fact, the jury is deliberating as we speak, about 10 miles from here. And by the way, John Correru wrote a fantastic book called Bad Blood about the story of Theranos, which is really a good read. And there's also a podcast called The Dropout. So that's an example of a company that by itself created a massive misalignment and was a big failure. The second case is when the market is changing and suddenly I become misaligned. And I can give you an example of this, which is Nike. Nike didn't invent the running shoes. It was vibrant industry before, but somehow they created an amazing brand, which is Just Do It, and disturbed that market, coming at it in a very different way. And the idea is to tell people, you're not running with, it's not the shoes that matters, is that you're running with emotions. And suddenly they completely shifted the paradigm about looking at running shoes and that whole industry. And they created their own A2 alignment, which is the message versus the perception, completely disturbing an existing industry. And that is why Nike today is worth $250 billion in the public market, because they were able to completely misalign an existing industry. So it's a bit like tennis, it is enforced error and forced error. It's very much the same idea for external alignment between a business and its target market.
Now, you were telling us beforehand that you worked for a number of years for Steve Jobs, the dynamic, the great Steve Jobs there. How was Apple aligned?
Well, Apple was not aligned. When we bought Next back in 1997, the company was in disarray. And in fact, it's the misalignment that created all those issues that Apple had to face. Steve came back and really fixed a lot of those issues. He was extremely focused, as I mentioned earlier, and was able to turn the company around. And then his brilliancy and genius made him come together with the iPod back in 2001 and then the iPhone in 2007. So the company was very much misaligned, both externally and internally. And then Steve, brought discipline and focus, an obsessive focus, I should say. And then suddenly, little by little, actually started to realign the company better. And the company has been a tremendous success, as we all know.
And do you think then that obsessive focus that you mentioned that Steve Jobs had there is important for most people to have some form of almost obsessive focus?
I don't think it's important. I think it's critical. I think it's a matter of life or death for the business. You have to decide where you're going to be very good at and excel, and really focus obsessively on making that a reality. Then you can start to think about expanding. The iPhone didn't come at the same time as the iPod. It was the iPod first, and it had to be that order for technical and non-technical reasons. But I think that lack of focus, I've been a venture capitalist for many years here in Silicon Valley. I've been on 20 boards, and I can tell you that lack of focus is by far the number one reason companies fail. They just want to do too many things. They raise too much capital. They don't know who they are anymore. There's too much dilution, and they end up not growing, and they end up dying. And I have painfully witnessed that for many years here in Silicon Valley.
Fabulous learning there for us all, Philippe. Thanks, Philippe. Now, let me give viewers and listeners details of your book's URL, which is obviously, viewers, you can see on the screen behind me, but for listeners, it's all the W's, aligninthedots.com. Philippe's book is called Aligning the Dots, The New Paradigm to Grow Any Business, and it's published by Onward Business Press in both hardcover and ebook format. But tell us, Philippe, remind us again about your TV show that's around your book.
Yeah, the TV show is called The Alignment Zone, and it's created and produced by Rick Tocchini, and it's based on the book. And the idea is to have a live interview with the CEO of a company and understand what the misalignments are, why he or she cannot, is not growing the business as fast as wanted. And basically understanding those misalignments along the A4 methodology that we talked about. And then give advice on where, what they need to change to rectify those misalignments. And then we invite the CEO back 6 or 9 months later, and we ask, did you implement the advice? Did you change anything? And what were the results? And really give an authentic feedback of, the success of the alignment and how it translated into growth.
Yeah. And how can the viewers watch the program?
They can watch the episodes on bluedotspartners.com. So that's www.bluedotspartners.com. Which is the firm that I'm managing, which is focusing on helping companies grow faster, and they can watch the episodes over there.
Excellent. No matter the time of year you watch or hopefully rewatch this trilogy, it's likely that business growth will be top of your mind, whether it is revival or to build on existing success. As Philippe says in the subtitle of his aligninthebooks.com, his paradigm can help any business grow. Thanks, Dr. Philippe Bouissou, for the great thought leadership and a stimulating trilogy.
Yeah, thank you, Malcolm. This has been a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you again for inviting me.